Another special guest on another hot topic. Opposition in the Senate could force a delay in the Federal Reserve's rulemaking to cap swipe fees. Senator Dick Durbin joined us earlier this week. You might have seen it on Squawk Box to voice his concerns about any delay.
The banking industry and the credit card companies have so much money on the table when it comes to these interchange fees that they're charging merchants and consumers across America. It comes to $1.3 billion a year. Delaying this for 2 years is literally a $30 billion handout to the biggest banks and credit card companies at the expense of merchants and consumers.
All right, joining us now is the senator leading the opposition, Jon Tester of Montana. Senator, thanks for joining us today. What are your concerns about this Durbin amendment?
Yeah, my concerns is that as we come out of a recession, this is going to take opportunities away from community banks and credit unions to be able to do their job and help rebuild rural America. And quite frankly, it's just the wrong time. And here's why. When Senator Durbin put this amendment up a year ago, there was an exemption for banks under $10 billion. The regulators have said they don't know how to implement that to make it work because market forces will take over and it'll be a two-tiered system that in fact won't be a two-tiered system at all. So what I have said, and I've said this to Senator Durbin, and we've got a bill to do this, is that we're going to study this and then make a decision. Delay it, study it, and make a decision based on good information. You know, in this business that I'm in, if you don't have good information, you make bad decisions. I think we need some good information to carry forward on this because I think the unintended consequences could be disastrous, particularly for rural America.
Were you around for that first vote? I guess you were, but you had to be. It was part of the much bigger deal. It was weird the way it went in, wasn't it, Senator?
Well, it was an amendment that was on the floor that went in, and quite frankly, I don't think we had the information that's starting to come out now, and we still don't have the full story, and that's why I think a delay and study is the proper thing to do here, and make sure that we know what we're getting into when we move forward with this.
It's going to be tough. I don't know how you handicap it, but people, what do you need? You need 60, or what do you need? What do you need? Because I don't think people like to see that something like this, if it is a bad deal for credit, for small banks, for whatever your concerns are, the way it went in and how tough it's going to be to get out doesn't say a lot about our legislative process.
Well, all it takes is 60 votes, and I will tell you, once we get this to the floor, I'm confident we'll have those 60 votes. Yes, I do.
And that would be a 2-year delay. Let me ask you, Senator, because go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's important, a 2-year delay with the study so that we can come back and make a good decision based on good information. But go ahead.
I don't know where you philosophically come down with on this, but if it's price fixing, it's illegal, and there's a remedy in the courts for that. Is that true?
Well, I mean, that's not what this is about, though. You're right. The government is fixing prices on interchange fees, which isn't no way to run a shop.
That's no better than Visa and MasterCard supposedly fixing fees. But if Visa and MasterCard are fixing these swipe fees, and it's non-competitive and it's monopolistic or duopolistic or whatever, there's a remedy for that because it's against the law. Why should the government be in here setting price controls? I thought we learned something in the 70s about what happens and the unintended consequences of price control.
Well, I think it was sold as a real benefit to the consumers. The consumers aren't going to get one nickel of benefit out of this, and that's a fact. And quite frankly, it's going to be the great big guys. It'll be a money transfer from credit unions and community banks to great big corporations, retail corporations in this country. It won't do the consumers any good, and it's going to put a death nail in rural America.
Because I was even thinking, you know, if the retailers, Senator, didn't want to accept these debit cards, they don't have to. They don't. 44.
We look at Dodd. 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 We look at Dodd-Frank. 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 Well, I mean, I'm on the banking committee, and we need to watch the regulations as they come down and monitor that. But I'm not concerned with other things at this point in time. This is about interchange.
And have you made the case that we don't want to migrate consumers back to credit cards necessarily, that a debit card and paying for something on the spot is probably something that we should try to do more of, considering what we just went through, and we're going to make it harder for those to...
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly why we need to delay this, take a step back, have the study done, find out what the unintended consequences are before we move forward. Every regulator has said they don't know how to implement this. And I think, we pass bills here with good intention. But the fact is, if the folks in the agency say, whoa, you passed something that's unworkable, it's time to take a step back, study it. If it is workable, make it work. If it's not workable, do something else.
I don't know any time we actually try to pass something that wasn't well-intentioned, right? It always seemed to be, but we need to, probably a good idea to think about what the results are, what the effects actually are, and not what the intent was in the first place. I remember we've had you on a lot, and I feel like I got to ask you some questions to challenge you, but it's like all I'm doing is giving you more more ammunition to use.
Well, I think if this is a fact, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, Libertarian, it doesn't matter. If you step back and we can take and study what's going on here, I think ultimately the decision that's going to be made is going to be a lot better. It's going to help business and consumers more than what we've got on the books right now, and that's really all we're asking.
Well, what's the timeline? What's the timeline look like? When are we going to know what happens?
Well, we're pushing. I'm committed to get this done, and we're going to be working on every opportunity, whether it's this small business bill we're on now or some other bill down the future. We do have some timelines that are coming up, so the sooner the better.
What's going to happen with? There's a couple other things going on too. You going to get a vacation at some point if the whole thing gets shut down?
Hey, listen, life is a vacation, I was going to say, but no, I really hope we keep the government going. I mean, I think it's very, very important. I think especially as we're moving out of this recession, I think a government shutdown would be very, very bad. And so I hope we can come together, negotiate something that'll work for everybody, and we can keep the government operational and move on to the many issues that we need to deal with in this country.
When's the last time that you have some new information about what each side is, where their bargaining stances are at this point?
I don't know where the bargaining stances are right now, but I know this what we do here is give and take, and hopefully we can give and take on this issue and come up with some common ground, as should happen all the time, and move forward. But there's a lot of stop signs up out there, and I think shutting the government down would be a colossal mistake.
We had Senator Corker on too. I actually wasn't here, but I saw the interview. He is concerned with the duopoly, and that there's not as much competition between Visa and MasterCard and some of the big banks as there, maybe that would bring prices down a little bit, which probably would help everyone, I guess, if it was whenever there's more competition and more transparency, obviously. How do you do it? What's the way to do you got any idea?
Well, I would just tell you this. I think these questions can all be answered with a delay in a study and a thorough study. And I think all those kind of questions can be answered, and we can go back to the study and say, hey, This is what they found. This is what needs to be done to help consumers and help small business and help rural America and urban America and help move the economy forward. Right now, we have none of that. We really do have none of that. And there's a whole bunch of questions out there, none of them of which are answered. And so there's really nothing wrong with taking a step back when you get more information and saying, hold it, time out. Let's take a closer look at this and do the right thing.
Well, at least somebody stood up for Walmart. You know, they don't really have any clout with credit card companies and the like. I mean, they just, you know, what can they say? I mean, they're just...
Apparently Walmart does pay a lower fee than others. Yeah, no, I talked to a banker the other day about that.
They don't seem like they need anybody's help, do they? The big box guys, maybe the small ones. All right, Senator, we appreciate your time. I know you got to run. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.